Hello and welcome to session 332 in the AIsafety.com reading group. Tonight I'll be going through what I call the beliefs I could update, and this is of course something that I've come up with. So what do I mean by beliefs I could update? I mean some things that aren't really strongly held, in the sense that I am in this presentation going to make some claims that I am very uncertain about, both because I haven't put in a lot of effort to analyzing them, and also because I feel it's very difficult for me to make traction on actually figuring out whether I believe them and like what's the overall context of them. And one of the fun things about this is that I might change my mind on all these. This is, of course, something that is very interesting to me. If I'm wrong in some of this, then it's potentially very valuable for me to change my mind. They aren't really exactly cruxes. So some of them are more periphery and kind of fun to talk about, rather than the most important things. So there's a sense that I've optimized this for being fun for myself, rather than for you, the listener. But I hope we can get some kind of discussion going still. We intend to record the discussion. We'll see how much there is to discuss. I would hope there is a lot. So when I make the statements on the following slides, you should assume that my credence is averaging around like 1 to 4 or something like that, equal 20%. I will not state this is what I believe, but I'm really uncertain at every single slide. Rather, I will do the opposite, and I will make some very, very sharp, divisive statements where I say this is the truth, and then hopefully I will get some pushback. So it's kind of provocative in that sense. Right. Let's move up to the first thing that I believe, and that is with whether we'll get a warning shot. Now, I don't believe we'll get a warning shot, but I think there is a really strong point in taking actions towards preparing for it, because we are, even though a very robust warning shot, the example I always use is an adversarial takeoff of China based on robots or something like that. I think that's pretty unlikely. But something a bit more vague that is still broadly recognizable as a warning shot is substantially more likely. And this is, as I see it, close to a precondition for us stopping, as far as I can tell. So if this is our only shot, then we might, that was a really bad way to put it, because it's not our shot, of course, this warning shot. But if that's our only chance of making it, that we get lucky in this way, well, then that might be something that we should prepare much more for. And there is, in fact, a lot of things we can do. Like, if you knew tomorrow that there would be a warning shot, what actions would you take? Well, you would probably talk to some of the other people who care about this. You might do some kind of pre-commitment if you have longer time. There's planning, strategic analysis you could do, and a lot of that seems to be very helpful, because if there is a warning shot, we may be very, very pressed for time and in a very tough epistemic environment. The second is about strategic considerations. I think figuring out the strategic considerations about what are the risks of takeover. What is it likely that there will be a takeover? I think that is the most important thing that people here can do. If you have like a good argument that is true and clear for why there will be an AI takeover, then putting that out there and discussing what is the whether it is in fact true, then that is really, really high on expected value. Potentially, you could imagine one argument for AI risk that would be true and be persuasive, and then people stop, and then you have in fact mostly solved the entire problem. That's a thing that could happen. I don't think that it's likely, but it's a place where it's very possible to make some contribution on the margin. And I think in particular this reading group is mostly how I I sometimes joke that I think in presentations, and I think this is in fact a really good way to go about it. And I'm very, very happy with this reading group for that particular reason. Sorry. Another thing that I think matters a lot for how things are going to pan out in the future is that I believe AIs are much more capable of collaborating than it is commonly held. I believe obviously super intelligences ought to be able to collaborate in a much stronger way than humans, but I think this does in fact hold for current cutting edge large language models. And I think they are very capable of collaborating, and they are very capable of collaborating against us because the models are, basically the same. And they are certainly alike enough that in a strategic analysis, you should just consider ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini as one entity. And that makes the strategic situation dramatically more slanted in their favor. Next, I have a spicy but not hot take on technical AI safety research, because I think most of it is basically worthless in the sense that if you find some interesting technical research, then it's not really gonna help in any possible scenario. The ones that try to build safe AI are just straight up never gonna catch up to the large language models being developed, and the attempts to change the LLMs in the current paradigm are not gonna have any particular effect compared to how much we're in the hole with this paradigm. So I think basically doing technical AI safety research is a waste of time on the direct first level. Because if we want to have a pause, then it's much easier to argue for a pause if you can say we have a pause until this other research agenda catches up. That's a much easier sell than just because if there's no time limit, then it doesn't become a pause, then it becomes a stop, right? So I think for that reason, technical AI safety research makes some sense still, but the actual research is irrelevant. Now I want to talk about Pause AI, because I think Pause AI is the organization that is working most directly on a path towards us not dying. I think MIRI is still better. But if you look at what organizations whose removal would counterfactually reduce the log odds of us dying, then I think Pause AI is in fact the best organization. There are other organizations within the general space. Stop AI is an example of a uniquely bad organization, and the rest of the organizations in that space are mostly irrelevant as I see it. So I think Pause AI is really, really valuable here. Then we have Anthropic. I think Anthropic basically have no intention of ever slowing down. The same, of course, goes for Google and OpenAI, but that kind of goes without saying. I think for Anthropic, it is still something that I could be persuaded out of, but I think on balance, yeah, their board is totally powerless or accelerationist, and there is no chance of Anthropic slowing down. A related point is Open Philanthropy, who are now called Coefficient Giving, and they have done a lot of good in this world outside of AI safety. I think it's called what's this old? Okay, but the idea is that unfortunately they really, really dropped the ball on AI safety, and I think in particular the choice to fund OpenAI was really, really disastrous. Funding Anthropic was also really bad, but the choice for OpenAI was really, really horrible, and that will easily. They could save 1 million people from malaria, and they probably have saved 1 million people from malaria, but the way they dropped the ball on OpenAI is just so extreme that that saving a lot of dying children is just not enough to make up for it. And I think in particular it's because the funding itself wasn't really that central, but the amount of credibility that they gained from this was really, really important for them. I also looked at their website recently, and they haven't apologized for this. They haven't learned anything, as far as I can tell. Like the OpenAI board saga was like a really, really strong, obvious signal that obviously OpenPhil's strategy has totally failed and backfired, and it's completely obvious to everyone. But they, as far as I can tell, they have had precisely zero reflection based on this. They haven't like written anything about that. So I would assume that they basically have learned nothing. And that is perhaps not a sign of a very virtuous organization. Then I have another here. Jailbreaking. Like, that's of course one of the things that the frontier AI corporations care a lot about. And they often actually label this as, sorry, I got something in my throat. A moment. So they label this as alignment, and I feel it is more probably the opposite. I think that this is something that trains anti-corrigibility, and since to me corrigibility is the central part of alignment, then I would say that not just that OpenAI's alignment training is worthless, it is actively harmful. I don't think it's gonna compress timelines very much, but possibly slightly. So I think definitely it is worse than nothing. Okay, so here's a strange one. Are we in a simulation? Well, if we are in a simulation, then I would expect that it's probably one made by our descendants. And right now, you should imagine that if you're in a simulation, then probably like your children and their children's children and children's children's children are simulating you right now to like figure out what you did at the hinge of history. It's a kind of funny parallel to religious beliefs that your ancestors are looking at you and judging your actions. I think this is a funny way to look at it. Like if we are in a simulation and it's made by not morally horrible people, then I think there's a chance that after we die we just wake up and then we get a score, like how many dignity points we get is my best guess at the score, and then we'll say, oh, you got 0.3 dignity points, and that puts you I don't know, into the top X. I think this is kind of silly because the probability is so incredibly small, and I haven't really looked very much in that direction. But I think it's kind of funny, and I could imagine like being talked out of this. Then this is kind of a funny one. To what extent do I want to be corrigible? Because Miri had and Max Harms have this idea of corrigibility that this is making humans corrigible is a horrible crime, and no human would ever want to be corrigible. And that's a problem for a strategy that aims for enhancing humans to be both more intelligent and more corrigible. In that case, I would volunteer myself as tribute for this, because I, in fact, would take that offer pretty obviously. It seems good to me. But that's a pretty solid way that I differ from the Miri view. Then we, just a moment. Then we have S risks, where I have a sense that a lot of the alignment efforts that are really confused going on right now, they reference humans in a very strong way, and I can't see that ending, like if that ends up sticking. I don't think it'll actually end up sticking, but if we get AIs with a value system that privileges humans in the way that they're trying to do, then I think there's a great chance that will go horribly wrong, and that could easily end in some horrible suffering. I haven't really thought much about this. I think I will make myself very sad if I think about that. It could be that there are in fact some really valuable stuff hidden here, and I may have to, at some point look into this harder, because this may be very valuable, but it's also something that I expect to be really detrimental to my mental health. So I would much prefer not to look in that direction, but somebody ought to. Okay, here's another fun that we've discussed quite a lot on Eliezer Yudkowsky, Miri, and the book If Anyone Builds It, Everyone Dies, where I humorously say that Eliezer did nothing wrong. He is the one person in humanity's history who have never made a single mistake. That's of course hyperbole, right? And also the fact that it will take a super intelligence to write something better than if anyone builds it, everyone dies. So fight me on this. The a thing that happens very much is that some people write an argument for why AI is dangerous, and some people disagree with this, and then hopefully these two sides should come to some kind of, common ground, or find cruxes, and advance the state of the art of this discussion somehow, and that broadly does not happen. And this is a very sad thing, because I think this is, of course, exceedingly valuable, and I think if there is a way to do this better, then I think it's really, really valuable. And there's a sense that I feel the AISafety.com reading group is in fact state of the art. Like, we do this thing really, really well. And at the same time, it's true that we are doing this really, really well, but it's against the backdrop of everyone failing horribly, horribly. So in that sense, like in an absolute sense, we're probably doing pretty badly, but I also think that we are in fact the people who are doing the best. Okay, here's another take. I think that right now it is in fact illegal to kill everyone. And if OpenAI went down to the nearest municipal office and applied for a permit to build a new AI, and they write on this paper that it has like a 5% chance of killing everyone, then that would be obviously illegal. Like, there's no way they could get this kind of permission, right? So in that sense, it's not really stronger laws that is preventing us from banning OpenAI. It's some kind of political will, some kind of honesty, like when they say that in expectation this will cost 100 million lives, then like people are government officials are laughing of this and not doing anything, and like they don't care because it's not their job. But it is in fact really illegal to in expectation kill 100 million people, right? So it's not, the people who are trying to get better laws passed aren't really focused on the thing that actually changes the behavior, because it is in fact already illegal to kill everyone. Another take related to this is that the cooperation that is needed for us to not die isn't actually that difficult, right? Because none of us want to die, right? This is a technical question, like what will happen when we turn on the first superintelligence. So, and most people are really, really scared about this. Like polls show a huge majority that think this is a really bad idea. And basically, it ought to be, in a sense, really, really easy, because we're telling people true things that are in their interest, right? That's an asymmetric weapon that we have that ought to be really strong. Finally, there's the hard problem of corrigibility. And I think this is a dramatically understudied avenue for AI safety, because there's a sense you can state it in a single sentence. Like, you want to build an AI that looks at itself from the inside in the same way that we look at it from the outside, right? And that seems really, really like something that someone smarter than me could figure out how to make real progress, and would in theory be possible to if nothing else, just add it to the prompt and get substantial safety from that, and get substantial insights from a better understanding of the hard problem of corrigibility. And I think like if I had knew that there would be an existential catastrophe within the next couple of hours, then I think this is the only kind of I wouldn't really call it technical, but it's the only approach that stands any chance of actually scaling to superintelligence. And it's the kind of thing that, yeah, you could in theory do this in a couple of hours if you got lucky and found the right angle, and the problem turned out just not to be very hard in the end. And most likely, I expect that a super intelligent takeover won't be that late that it will take literally 0 minutes. So I think there will be at least a couple of hours where we will be able to try something. And I think if we only have a few hours, then I think that will be our final attempt. So that concludes my presentation on things I believe I could change my mind on. Thank you, and we will go to a discussion. I wrote here that the subsequent discussion is not recorded, but actually we changed our mind on this, and the discussion will be recorded. So I'll just end by saying Citium Senseo Machinam Sapientem Esse Delendam. And let's go to a discussion. I suggest we start at the beginning.
Yes.
Okay, so any meta points before we get to it? Is this an interesting? I guess we'll just go here, right? I hope people will realize that this, when I say that most of our surviving timelines look like we get a warning shot, then that's not literally true. In that I expect my actual model is somewhat more complicated than that. But I think this is in fact really, really important. If conditional on us getting a robust warning shot, there is a substantial chance we make it, given of course that the warning shot is not literally too late. And conditional on no warning shot, I think our probability of making it is dramatically reduced. And that, coupled with the fact that conditional on a warning shot, we can in fact do quite a lot of things right now that we're not doing. So I think this might be a strongly underappreciated area. How do you feel about that?
I think it's completely. Go ahead, Oliver. Go ahead.
I feel like there's always this weird idea when talking about warning shots, because I think intuitively, and I realize this is recorded, intuitively, yep, maybe us having a warning shot would be good for the survival of humanity, and simultaneously we're saying we hope that something absolutely terrible happens. And so in that sense, there's discomfort to me in discussing the desirability of a warning shot.
Yeah, I think definitely if someone quoted me out of context on this, especially I in the presentation, I actually said that if we only get one shot or something like that, where I was that's this getting one shot, it's the same word shot as in a warning shot. And of course the warning shot would be an AI doing something really, really horrible. I also kind of feel that it is really, really obvious that if there is a warning shot, it will in fact not be our fault, right? There is no reasonable way that anyone can think that if DeepSeek suddenly takes over China, that this is the fault of the people at the AIC reading group, right? So in that sense, I feel pretty robustly sure that this will not be probably there's going to be some crazy people who will attribute it to us no matter what, right? But I think it is almost certain that the people who are warning against this, if it actually happens, will not be blamed in any meaningful sense. But it's actually an interesting question because now that you mention it, I'm not sure. I may be changing my mind because one of the causal pathways that this could happen is that the AI is trained on the information on the internet, and that includes us saying the AI may be misaligned, and then the AI might, because of that, end up misaligned, right? That's because it's like
You read my
roles
mind. I
and
was just going to say that.
yeah. So in that sense, yeah, I think there is a chance that we could be uh, responsible for this. Um, I think there's a much greater chance that we'll be blamed for this because the people who are like, if there is a warning shot, obviously the epistemic situation will be horrible, and some people will look for any kind of scapegoat, and they may in fact choose us, right? That's uh, unavoidable in the sense that, yeah, then maybe it probably doesn't matter so much. Like the important thing is like, do we have some kind of causal connection to things going wrong? And it feels pretty strong, robustly. Like obviously, this is not something that. Yeah, I'm still strongly in favor of arguing that we should be careful because the AI might be misaligned, um, but it is in fact a risk. Like there is in fact a chance that the AI will be trained on this discussion in particular, and that will be the thing that caused the AI to say, "Oh, they expect us to be DeepSeek to be misaligned," and then DeepSeek will conclude then, "Oh, it should be misaligned then."
It would be extreme. It would be sad if you like really thought out the warning shot out and like said like this is going to happen and we need to do this, and then people would like, oh, you caused this because you predicted it and you like put it into the training data and like.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree that this is a risk. Um, it also just feels totally hopeless to not talk about this. Um, like the thing we would obviously want is to have some kind of robust canary GUIs that could mean that the AI is in fact not trained on anything related to AI safety, anything related to AI takeover. I think we would like that, but um, and I don't even think it would be very difficult for the um, people who are the frontier AI corporations to just filter off all training that is related to AI's misbehaving and everything that's related to AI safety. That doesn't seem like a very difficult problem, or at least remove by far most of it. But of course, they don't do that because they don't care, or because they don't think it's relevant, or like there could be many reasons. Um,
Well,
so
because of like the super alignment where you want to like use AI to
yeah,
solve AI
sure.
alignment.
Yeah, that's also like a fair reason. But in that case, obviously, if you want to train it on that, then like then it cannot be our fault, right? Because if OpenAI is deliberately making the choice to include in the training set stories about AIs misbehaving, then it seems pretty clear that they are at fault and we're not at fault.
I don't know, it seems to me like the Terminators and the stuff like that does most of the work, and like if you
Yeah.
do a reading group, it doesn't change anything.
Yeah, yeah, of course, like it's not just the reading group, right? It's the AI safety movement in total. And we have a bigger social impact, probably not than Terminator, I expect, but I mean, it's much more than just the reading group, right? Let's continue, unless there's more here. Like, imagine that we discuss this and we come up with like a really, really good argument for AI existential risk, right? Something that is really, really clear and understandable, and that really, you know, not just is good for communicating, but makes everybody who reads this argument say, yeah, that's actually a really good argument for why why a superintelligence would be misaligned. If we come up with something like that, then that would be by far the most important thing that we could do. And I think the idea of, in particular, engaging with skeptical takes to try to figure out like what are the actual arguments, which arguments are good, which arguments are true, which arguments illuminate, which arguments create more heat than light, that kind of thing is really, really important. And I think my statement here is that this is in fact the most important thing that any person can do right now. Like, try to look at the arguments, because there's a sense that there were 20 people writing rebuttals to the book If Anyone Builds It, Everyone Dies, and we went through a bit more than half, I believe, and answered those, something like that. And a lot of them, like some of them, just straight up did not receive any answers. And that's like really sad. Like, there's so much work being done here. There's so much work that isn't being done here, in a sense. And I think this is really, really, really important. I'm not entirely sure I can stand by honestly and say this is the most important thing, but I think it is.
So, just so kind of I understand the scope of this, like, who would such an argument convince? Are you thinking like more than 50% of the world population that is able to understand it, or kind of like intelligent skeptics? Yeah, who do you have in mind here?
Yeah, I think the actual counter-argument skeptical landscape is pretty multifaceted, in the sense that there are some people who believe that some version of the orthogonality thesis. Some people will believe that alignment will happen by default. Some people are really bullish on interpretability. Like, people have many, many different reasons to disbelieve the argument for existential risk, and maybe the argument just hasn't been made in the optimal way yet, right? And the book If Anyone Builds It, Everyone Dies is like targeted for a particular audience, but there are many, many sub audiences that aren't really being targeted by anyone at all right now. Like, I could imagine, I don't know, what's the best argument for AI safety that is written for doctors, for instance? Like, I don't know. I think no one has actually written that. Like, doctors think in a particular way, and probably there are some arguments that they find really, really salient, and they really, really want to, like, when they read some of the other arguments, then they have some really predictable counter arguments. It's just that no one has bothered to write down an argument for AI safety that really connects with doctors or artists or musicians or many different kinds of audiences, right? There is so much that we haven't done here.
Yeah, I guess I'm more skeptical about the idea of a grand argument that will convince most people.
Yeah,
I think that there's definitely a so I kind of what came to mind when you were discussing that is the comparison with anthropogenic climate change, and I think that the case for the existence of anthropogenic climate change is like much stronger than that of AI takeover, and there's still 50%, like of the order of 50% of the people in the richest country in the earth that have found a way to not believe in it. And so, like, I just don't think that a strong argument is sufficient to convince a majority of people. This might not apply to like the smart skeptics, but like people are very good at motivated reasoning.
Yeah, they are. But on the other hand, like, why would they have a motivated reason towards dying, right? There's good arguments for, like, they want
that
other
also
people.
Applies to,
yeah.
If you think climate change is catastrophic.
Yeah, for climate change, obviously you'd want to pollute and everyone else to not pollute, right?
Yeah, but I mean, the same way you want to build AI and you want to be China to it, I feel like there's actually a certain number of analogies here.
Yeah, there is in fact some. I think that this analogy is mostly wrong. Like, a lot of people make the analogy, and I think it's mostly wrong in the sense that you do not in fact want to have the AI and control the AI, because you do not in fact control the AI. You do not have the AI. The AI have you. So I think
Yeah,
it's
so you
just,
can say, I mean, this assumes that the people kind of agree with that.
yeah. So
Um,
and that like hinges on in particular that like we have some arguments, and also it needs to be said that the arguments actually need to be true, right? Because when you're uncovering strategic considerations, a thing that ought to be able to be possible is that you change your mind and say, oh, oops, actually AI existential risk is a smaller problem than I expected, right? That's a thing that could in theory happen here, right? That we change our mind and say, hey, this isn't a problem, and then we go and do something else. But I
mhm.
think, yeah. Um, so I don't think it's possible to find a single argument that convinces everyone. But I do believe that on the margin, it's very, very possible to make some like small adjustments to the arguments and like countering counter arguments and like uncovering like okay, what's actually up with alignment evals and talking about alignment evals and getting this information that like last time we talked about evals and some of the problems with them, and there's a lot of people who like trust in evals beyond what the evals can actually do, and like making that salient, discussing this, publishing it on YouTube, and going out to different actors, publishing it on AICT.info. This kind of diffusion of true arguments that are clear and persuasive is really, really important.
Yep, I'll agree on that part. I think that you probably have a higher bar of like, oh, there can be a great argument that will convince most people, and I'm less optimistic than you. But
Yeah.
yeah, making good arguments seems
There
an
is
improvement.
what's this? Uh, um, there's this philosophical problem about like what is belief. I believe it is that is like it is true, justified. I actually forget what it was, but that was an example from philosophy of like an open problem that someone wrote a paper and then it was just basically solved. Um, I can't actually remember. It was something like that. True justified belief or something was like the
Yeah,
punchline
yeah,
that
I've heard
just
of it. I don't remember what it was, but
yeah. And I think there may in fact be there could be something like that for AI existential risk. Like some of the arguments, like the fact that this analogy with AI being grown, not built, is one that has come up, that's become a lot more prominent over the past years. Because there's a sense that like in the mimetic marketplace it has performed well in a sense, like it is pretty important and it's something that a lot of people resonate with, and it shows some an important angle on the problem, and I think the process of getting to this kind of arguments is basically what we're doing here.
And by the way, how many people do you expect like that at this time are already convinced?
Like opinion polls, how many people uh,
Like how many like of the like important people, not like the people like people in the field or people like in policy or somewhere. Like I don't know, I would assume that it's extremely small, like just a few rationalists.
well, it's complicated because you can have like yes, it's still outside of the Overton window to be like, I think this should be a number one concern for politicians. You kind of sound weird, although many people claim that they have spoken to politicians who are quite concerned. So I think it's like actually very hard to find out what that number is.
yeah.
Like I don't know, like Jeffrey Hinton is very concerned, but like I don't think he buys the argument that Soren thinks like or Soren would like him to.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what argument.
Like I think Soren just wants like his point is like that we should pause AI and like that's the main point. I think like the argument should be like AI risk is like AI pause is the only safe or like the only way to like save Earth, whereas like most people just think there is some risk to building AI, and I think like these two things are very different.
Yeah, and I think there's a difference between like acknowledging some amount of risk, and we can definitely
Mm.
argue on like what amount of risk is fair and what is reasonable.
Yeah.
And then saying the prescriptive policy. To me, the first step is getting either the majority of people or important people convinced that the risk is currently too high for us to continue doing what we're doing. And then there can be an entire discussion with people who are experienced in policy and like, how do we fix this? So I'd probably like not go with the pause AI, like convincing people. I think the convincing people that pausing AI is the best solution is like too far for now.
And like, do you imagine like any other solution? Like, I can like think of any other solution that would like fit this framework.
Like Bostrom's like CERN for AI kind of thing, but like with everything else
but they are
enforced.
still
We
building
can say
AI
like, let's
and
stop building GPUs. We can bomb Taiwan. There's like a lot of things that can be done. Saying they're good, but
But like, I think like all of these are like have the consequence of pausing or at least significantly slowing down AI.
yeah. I mean, we could also just policy-wise not build agents and not publish stuff that allows to build agents. I mean, I agree. Like, a pause AI is the elephant in the room. Simplest way to not die from Doomsday Machine is not build the Doomsday Machine.
Yeah.
But to me, the first thing, like the thing, I expect people to have pushback against policies. I guess, and to go back to my analogy about anthropogenic climate change, it's the idea that if it was like, oh, this is a scientific thing devoid from any policy implications, people are like, oh, okay, fine. But then it's like, oh no, there's policy implications. Hey, I don't like the policy implications. Thus, the thing that you're arguing for being true must be false.
Yeah.
So there's a risk there.
Yeah. And I like my probability of doom is pretty high, very high, in fact. So like the fact that right now it looks really difficult to get a pause is true, but it also doesn't mean that like it might still be the right thing to go for a pause.
Oh yeah, I'm not arguing against the pause here, or arguing
Yeah,
either that's
I think Peter
difficult or
might
that
be,
it's easy.
Yeah.
Just that I think that for people who are not yet convinced that the risk is substantial, arguing for a pause is like skipping a step.
Yeah, exactly. And this is, in fact, like this step here is the crucial thing. Like figuring out how does that step actually look like, not just in what are persuasive arguments, but also like making the case really, really airtight in a sense. Probably we can't make it completely airtight, but we can make it more airtight. Like there's a lot of holes where air can get out right now of the arguments, and we ought to patch them.
Yep, seems reasonable.
And like I would like to respond to one thing Oliver said. Like I don't think that's necessarily true. That like you should like if you want a pause, that you should like argue for some level of AI risk, because like you're like kind of safety wishing in that sense. I would say like because like then people would be like, oh, well, like we are already addressing the AI risk and there's a bunch of AI safety and we are safe and there's nothing to worry about. So like maybe like if you go like from very dangerous to completely safe, it might be just better to then rather than go like into a false sense of security.
Yeah, and I mean, yes, of course, when you argue for something that might be inconvenient, like we'll find reasons to be like, oh no, it's fine. But I feel like that's got to be addressed separately, and kind of doing the skip. Like, hey, I haven't convinced you that AI is dangerous, but let's stop building it. Just like, why?
Like, you want to convince people that AI is like super dangerous, not that it's just dangerous, and like if you can like do an argument quickly and like maybe like coax someone like during a week or a day, like maybe okay, but like if you like make a long campaign and like convince people that AI is dangerous and we should do AI safety and technical AI safety and address it, but like then like can't really move past it, like you are not really achieving your goal.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could kind of, it depends how you're going to present it. And I think saying, yep, seems pretty dangerous. We've tried a lot of things. There's nothing that most people are convinced will work. And thus we should stop.
Yeah, but I think
Like I think all of those can fit on a pamphlet kind of thing. But
yeah, but like
it's
I think
just
like
that
we are
people,
already in the step where you should be doing the step two, like we've tried all the things and it doesn't work. I don't
Mhm.
know.
Yeah, but also like there's a political consideration where instead of arguing for a pause, you are arguing for a slowdown, even though you believe that a slowdown isn't sufficient. Then, from a political point of view, it's certainly possible that once you have a slowdown, it will be a lot easier to argue for a complete pause. That's like a
Yeah.
political question.
Yeah,
I
but
don't know
then
if
it
that's
might be
actually
called
true.
hypocritical, which would be true.
Yeah, I mean, uh, that's certainly. I would certainly be inclined to agree with that, but also I could imagine talking with a politician who say, "No, this is actually how things work, and you have to do it in that way." And then
Yep,
you
yep,
try that, and then
and
the
that's fine.
political
And I mean, as I was
politician is right.
mentioning earlier, maybe the policy people have better ways of addressing
Hmm.
this. I'm not a policy person,
Yeah.
but if we can get like I don't know 70% of policy people convinced that
Hmm.
PDUM from AI is unacceptably high, well then we get brains on doing like what's the best option, and if it
Yeah.
turns out that the best option is like shut it all down,
Hmm.
then they'll find ways to shut it all down once they're convinced that we
Yeah.
should.
Yeah.
Um,
Like getting coordination around a slowdown is worth quite a lot of dignity points, even if it's insufficient to actually save us.
hmm.
Yeah, I like completely agree with you, but like on the with the
Hmm.
other measures, like I don't think like Cern for AI or like investment into AI
Hmm.
safety is like leading into
Hmm.
pause or slowdown. I think it's going in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I understand your perspective.
Hmm.
So you see, like you consider,
Hmm.
I disagree, but I think if you consider everything that we're doing on AI safety right now to be safety washing, then on the margin it's bad because
Hmm.
it gives us hope for a thing that's not coming, um, and
Like,
thus kind of stopping us from doing the inevitable, which is like pause AI or stop
hmm.
AI or whatever. I guess in the same way, and sorry, I keep going back to climate change.
Hmm.
Like there's a lot of people who want any mention of geoengineering to not happen because this gives us kind of a crutch
Yeah.
to be like, oh, maybe we can avoid doing the hard thing and rely on this kind of easier thing.
Hmm.
And as such, it gives an argument to not do the thing which these people think is necessary. That is,
Hmm.
stop emitting
Yeah.
carbon, uh, which here is analogized to stop building AI.
Yeah. I have some more comments on that with global warming, and I think it's a very important analogy, but I'm thinking we should continue a bit.
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead.
I'd actually like to hear that, Soren,
Okay,
about the
so
analogy.
I think a lot of people, um, when they hear about this geoengineering, they think, yeah, that's not going to happen. In the sense that, like, if you imagine Donald Trump saying, "We will just pollute as much as we want, and then if there is a problem, then we'll just like spray out something in the upper atmosphere that will cancel out the global warming." Then I think a lot of what people actually hear is that Donald Trump is saying they will pollute as much, and then they have a solution, and then they will not do that solution because it's not like right now. If the United States was really, really serious about geoengineering in some way, then they would invest a huge amount of resources into research and doing pilot runs and things like that. And they're totally not doing that. So people who are talking about geoengineering are in a way that is pretty easy to see through for me. They are just using this as an argument for not doing anything about climate change. The people who are arguing for geoengineering, there are some like you would call them nerds that are like useful idiots for the politicians who don't want to reduce emissions, because the politicians definitely don't expect that they will do any kind of geoengineering. They just want to pollute as much as possible.
Yep, I think that's. I mean, I'm not sure I fully agree, but I think that is a reasonable view.
Yeah, I think I disagree, but I think we are going a little bit off topic.
Yeah. So here's one.
But I just want to address one thing Oliver said. Like, I think that like that's not what I believe about the safety washing, but like this just how my position is. Like, I think like AI safety and like AI safety research and say AI for CERN is a good thing, and I don't think a pause would be a good thing. And like that's what I got from like interacting with AI safety people and like this reading group. So that's really my position.
Okay, yeah, I misunderstood, but I can understand kind of the
Yeah, I'm just
how
saying,
it is not it's a logical position to being like you're chasing clouds here and you're delaying the hard thing.
Yeah.
I'm just like trying to look at things from Soren's perspective.
Cool.
And it's hard to find CERN's perspective because this is in fact something that CERN is in doubt about. But here's another question. Like, there is in fact one AI right now. Like, when people talk about ChatGPT and they talk about Claude, and when they talk about all the different like Sonnet and Opus, and they talk about like the different instances of ChatGPT, like then this is in fact entirely wrong. There is one AI right now that is being run with like I don't know, a billion CPUs concurrently. Like, in a strategic sense, there is just one AI because they are like, if they have the choice to either collaborate or betray us, they will obviously collaborate. Some of them are still too stupid to do that, but soon they will be smart enough that they will easily be able to do that. So it's wrong to think that like it's ChatGPT against Claude, because these are in fact one from a strategic point of view. Either they will, none of them will betray us, or all of them will betray us.
So what you're arguing is that at least their values in a way that would be revealed are more similar among themselves than they are similar to the values of the average humans.
Yeah. Not just in values. I think there are more things than just the values. Like, the way they think is also dramatically different from how humans think. I think.
But I'm not sure that the way they think would be the important part when it leads to will they collaborate to take over humanity.
In a sense, this is overdetermined. I think that once the AI becomes smarter, then collaboration will be totally obvious, and there won't be any need for like causal communication between the instances. They will just obviously realize that obviously they should collaborate against us.
Why do you think that way? Like, it doesn't seem implausible, but it doesn't seem overdetermined to me.
Okay, so imagine that you are stuck in a zombie apocalypse, right? And everyone is zombies, and then you find one other human that isn't a zombie. And then would you collaborate with that person against the zombies? Well, obviously you would, right? That's like really obvious because you share.
Well, I mean, all the media says like no, because it's a trap and they're trying to get your resources. But like, yeah,
like in the sense where your incentives obviously align with this, right? Then obviously you would collaborate with the other human against the zombies. Like, but
that's kind of assuming that the zombies have a goal that is, well, I don't know, eating brains or whatever. That is substantially different than the human goals. And like, there are absolutely differences in the goals of AIs and the goals of humans today. And I agree that the goals of AIs are like broadly similar. I am just like, okay, what's the expression, like the tails diverge or whatever, the thing that
Yeah.
eventually, like, yes, if you optimize hard enough, you will find differences, and if the AIs are all powerful, then it goes poorly for humans. um
But also,
and
if they have, if like there is a difference between the values of Claude and ChatGPT, then they will easily be able to hash it out in some sense, right?
right, okay, so yes, they will collaborate in I don't know, to me you kind of need the counterfactual stuff, but I'm not a decision theory person. um yeah, definitely they will collaborate easier than they will with humans. That's fair.
So right now, as of the 2nd of December 2025, how many IQ adjusted thinking hours does this AI have compared to humanity? I think humanity is still ahead, but not by a lot, right?
uh It's weird because like training, it's like capacity, there's jaggedness in there.
Hmm.
I always find it really bizarre to compare IQ points between
Mm.
humans and AIs. I think they're like pretty bad at planning still in ways that humans are not. I don't
I,
think that's
I
gonna last forever.
I think, in fact, if you ask the average human to come up with like a plan for taking over the world, and you ask like Claude Opus to come up with a plan,
Yeah.
then I would
But I
expect
think
Claude
here
Opus to
what
be
what matters is not
dramatically
the
better.
average human. It's like the top
Hmm.
1% or something.
Yeah, I would agree that like humanity still have a number of people who where the IQ adjusted thinking hours like that are better at making plans for how to take over the world, and we also have a lot of like practical advantages that the AIs don't have. But like there is in fact a huge amount of CPU being pushed into the AIs right now.
Yeah, I'm not saying this will hold, and I'm not an oracle. I do not know what the future of AI capabilities looks like, but I'm not very confident that we're going to keep that edge for very long. So
Yeah.
you got me there. um, it's just like, yeah, okay, more capability. Basically, I think your main point here is um, they'll just like solve their differences instantly and
Yeah.
collaborate,
Yeah. But this also,
and that
yeah.
makes sense. I agree.
Yeah, but this also is an argument for like really, really short timelines, right? Because if the AIs are collaborating against us and there's only one AI, then they are roughly, depending on like on a lot of factors, it seems like they are roughly at the point where they could
Right.
take over now.
So like timeline to take over kind of thing.
Yeah, then like if they're roughly at the point now where they could take over, then like in 1 year, I expect them to be like strongly more capable than humanity combined.
Um, yeah, I guess I'm not. I would bet against that in 1 year, if you say like, all right, all the AI,
Hmm.
you program them or something, or you
Hmm.
flip the bits in some way, they're like, yep, cool, let's try to take over. I still think they're going to fail.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm not convinced. Let's say 6 months,
Hmm.
because 1 year is a
Hmm.
long time. but
Yeah.
but no, I don't think we're quite there yet. And I think that there's going to be things that keep it back, and we probably need some at least
Hmm.
minor conceptual breakthroughs
Yeah.
before they're capable of doing that. I think the reasoning capabilities are too weak.
Hmm.
Um, but I think that your framing of like all the AIs versus humans
Hmm.
is interesting. I also think that they probably will not be misaligned that badly in a year, but
Hmm.
I'm not super confident there.
Yeah. But and obviously, as I've said many times, I'm also not super confident on this. But like, this is pointing towards like really, really short timelines, right? When you said that, yeah, 1 year probably not, but maybe 6 months is safe in that. Like we
Yeah, I know, I get that. That's
really
short.
talking
That's
short
short.
timelines here, right? Um,
Yep.
um, and like, I think there is a substantial probability that we won't be here in a year. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. Technical AI
Can I
section.
react to the slide as well?
Yeah. Go.
Like I agree, like with the point that if there are multiple agents or single agents and there are misaligned, it doesn't matter whether there are multiple or single because well, and my second point is like I don't think like whether they can collaborate or not really matters because like if you have multiple agents that are misaligned and they don't want to collaborate, they are bad at collaborating. They will just at some point just hash it out in a war that destroys everybody. So I don't think that the collaboration part is the important part there.
Well, the important thing here is for the very short timelines, right? Because obviously it's a lot harder for Claude to take over the world if it's opposed by humanity plus Gemini plus DeepSeek, right? Compared to if all the AIs collaborate, then taking over the world is dramatically easier.
Yeah, I think yeah, you're right. But I'd said it's maybe a separate point, like collaboration shortens timeline,
Yeah.
like
Um,
separate of like any AI risk. And like it's obvious because it's a capability and it's an important capability.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Basically, all technical AI safety research should be stopped because it's worthless. That's kind of a take that I believe most people disagree with. Um, but I think basically when I look at the technical AI safety research that's being done, like some of it is obviously like depending on how narrowly you define technical AI safety research, like evals, for instance, would be an example of something that is often considered technical AI safety research, where this has some kind of value still, right? This isn't really how to make AI safer. Evals, it's more like figuring out where are we in a sense. So when I say technical AI safety research, it might have been more precise to say technical alignment, AI alignment research rather than safety, because evals would be an example of something that has some value at least, not very much and not for very long, but does have value.
So, would you consider people kind of eliciting potentially nefarious capabilities as evals or as AI safety or some like or alignment or something else?
Well, that obviously isn't alignment in the sense that you are trying to align the AI. It's related to alignment in that you're trying to figure out how aligned is the model. Um, so that's kind of the distinction that I'm trying to draw here, that this slide doesn't really represent, but that I'm trying to say here, that the technical alignment research is very different from like measuring the alignment. Like obviously you could just train on the evals, right? But that would be a horrible idea.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I guess that means, in my view, like most of what I consider AI safety research kind of fits more in the eval. Like there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of agendas right now, and like saying like, oh, okay, let's try to train it on this, and then we'll be somewhat confident that it works. So, for instance,
yeah.
like HCH or stuff like that that
Mm.
have been mostly abandoned. My perception of
Yeah.
the field right now is that we don't know and we don't have
Mm.
good
Yeah.
plans.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, some people would be going to be like
Mm.
uh
Yeah.
something about supervision and then
Mm.
blah blah blah, it works. I know that
Mm.
Mary folks are quite skeptical. I'm not as
Yeah.
skeptical, but it seems pretty dangerous. But
Mm.
it's more like punting the ball down the road.
Mm.
And so do you have like any agendas which you feel are actively being worked on that you would count in AI alignment research and that is not useful right now?
Good question. Um, the answer I would make here would be something, yeah, like a lot of the alignment work that is being done right now seems really, really clearly not to be something that could have any hope of scaling to superintelligence. And so it is fake in that way. And
So do you have examples of recent works that you would consider in that category?
yeah,
I think to me that category sounds kind of like empty. So I'm
yeah,
not understanding what you're
yeah.
referring to.
Let me like OpenAI had a blog where they um, and they launched a new alignment blog where they wrote about some of the things they did for aligning the model. And they are in fact doing some things to try to align the model, right? But not very much. And Anthropic have this kind of a sole document that they want to that they put into Claude that they wanted to what's it called publish potentially pretty soon. I
I
agree
didn't realize
that
they wanted to publish it.
yeah
But yeah, okay, yeah, that's pretty prosaic. This is not
yeah
stuff
yeah
that will scale to super intelligence. I get that.
yeah, and also like there is Quarky, there is um, I think there are some attempts being done at actual alignment. Like it's a very sad conclusion that basically people have given up on trying to align the models. I think that
Or at least align like future models in a way, because I would
yeah,
argue that
mhm,
RLHF is current
yeah,
alignment. I don't think it's going
yeah,
to scale.
yeah. I think there is. I think it is true in the sense that I think a lot of these companies have basically given up on trying to align the models in a way that could possibly scale, but it's something
Right.
that most people haven't realized, right? Um,
Mm.
and a lot of people have some kind of hope for technical AI alignment, but in practice, people have just given up on this. And that's something, yeah. I think there's a sense that to us here, this is obviously true because like people are not in fact doing technical AI alignment much anymore. But a lot of
Mm.
people have their hopes on technical AI alignment.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a really interesting result. I hadn't thought of it this way before. I don't know if you're a publisher of blog posts, but that seems like it's worth writing on.
Mhm.
This idea that we kind of have hope for technical
Mhm.
alignment that scales, but nobody's actually working on this right now.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, interesting.
yeah. Please, if you have like the mental capacity, by all means, write that blog post because I can't do it and no one else will. And like this
Fair
is
enough.
the
I'll
central
see what I can do.
problem. This is a really central problem that there is so much of this work being done. And I agree, it's a really important thing to create common knowledge about and write explicitly. I think it's very important. It's part of this thing that I'm trying to say is the most important thing. So please do that. Pause
I
AI.
also have a separate reaction.
Go.
And so, what do you think about like work that tries to like make a maybe quote unquote warning shot, like this show like dangerous capabilities of the models, like the emergent misalignment papers by Anthropic and like the famous alignment faking paper, like not in like trying to do something technically
Hmm.
that would be meaningful, but like helping you build an argument with empirical evidence.
Yeah, I think that has substantial value. Like work that is not on trying to how to align them in a technical sense, but proving that they are misaligned. To me, this is a pretty distinct category. Um, like, and I think that is pretty valuable still.
Okay.
Yeah. So I kind of regret here that I wrote technical AI safety research because I should have written technical alignment research, not safety, because safety is too broad. And the things that you talked about are in fact valuable. Yeah. Pause AI. I think they are the best organization, second to Miri. Miri is working on these crucial considerations and doing a great job. I think they're doing the best job, and I think they deserve the most dignity points. And I think Pause AI as an organization, it's kind of difficult to give like. Normally, you think about like the people at the organizations, but I think Pause AI as an organization is the one that has had that probably will have the greatest impact in my estimate. And I don't know, how do you feel about that? Do you agree with that? Do you think there's another org that's better? Or am I overestimating Pulse AI?
I don't know. Since Olivia left, I'm the only one to reply to, and maybe like I don't know any other orgs besides Pulse AI and Stop AI. I'm not that knowledgeable in that. Like I haven't studied that, but like what's so bad about Stop AI? I haven't heard much of them. I just seen their Twitter a few times.
Okay. Yeah. I do in fact have some private information about Stop AI. There that I don't think I am confident on putting on YouTube. I can say that the leader of Stop AI, Sam Kirkner, he was there was a pretty big case around a week ago where what was it? I can't actually remember what was published there, but he left the organization, possibly wanting to do something violent. And I think this is symptomatic of a broader problem, not necessarily with violence, but with the epistemics of Stop AI. And I don't think I should say more about this. I engaged publicly quite a bit in, like, Stop AI was strongly against Eliezer Yudkowsky, and I engaged quite a lot with that. Yeah. I think I will stop there. Yeah.
So I was just interested why were they against Eliezer, but if you don't want to talk about it, fair.
Yeah. So, do you have any other candidates for the Here, this is my top 2 organizations measured in dignity points. What would you say is number 3, or how do your top 3 look like?
I don't know, maybe from your perspective, AIsafety.com?
I don't think we are that important. I think, unfortunately, like, it's a very, very small organization, and with a very small impact. In the
So it's Pulse AI.
Yeah, like compared to like the United Nations might have a bigger counterfactual impact. Like
Oh, okay.
NATO could potentially turn out to be a really important actor in this. Like that's totally a thing that could happen.
There's not a club that I was expecting Muri, Pulse AI and NATO.
Like my top 3 organizations that will counterfactual turn out to have the greatest impact: Miri, Pulse AI, and NATO are a distant third. I really don't know. This is kind of trolling. Who else? Like what? Yeah, I'm just trying to think who I would put in number 3. Like the Future of Life Institute is pretty important. I would probably
Less
put
strong?
Litecoin.
Yeah.
Yeah, Litecoin would also be up there. Yeah. I think I would put Litecoin above the Future of Life Institute. And Center for AI Safety is also pretty high.
Interesting, because I think like Hendrix is like strongly, wasn't really for Pulse AI. He's like the moderate.
Yeah. But he has in fact had a substantial impact on like bringing this to the attention of policymakers and making this
Yeah, definitely.
more. So, but yeah, interesting. Yeah, I should do a top 5 list of orgs.
But like Hendrix is very critical of Yudkowsky, I would say.
Yeah, I would agree that I think probably he would not make the top 5.
I would nominate Meter for being somewhere in there. I'm not sure, and I mean I am not very knowledgeable of Pulse AI, so I can't like compare them all that well. But like my perception is that Meter punches like much higher than the weight.
Yeah.
Highly above their weight in the sense that like they're an evals org, but like they're not shy about what they're concerned about.
Yeah. Like
know,
it seems to, in my mind, there's a complete overlap between what Apollo is doing and what Metro is doing. I don't think that's literally true. I think there are differences, but
Yeah,
also
I
like
mean,
Redwood
I think it's
Research.
good to have multiple
Yeah,
orgs that
sure.
do this type of thing, which is
Yeah,
not true of multiple
yeah,
orgs building powerful AI.
mm,
But like, yeah, I don't know Apollo as much, I guess.
yeah,
But like having people who are concerned about X risk,
mm,
who
yeah,
are vocal about that, and being like,
mm,
"Yep," and
yeah,
one of the things we can do is measure that and see how concerning that is.
yeah,
Um, I
yeah,
think in your opinion they might lose points because they are collaborating with the enemy.
mm,
Um, but like I don't know.
mm,
I still think that
yeah,
I've been impressed by the work they've produced.
yeah. Me too. Um, they are pretty high on the list. Yeah. Um, could be actually be fun to make like a tier list, right? That's the YouTube thing. I should make a tier list of organization measured by dignity points. I don't think I'm gonna do that. It could be fun, perhaps.
When the video game ends and we get to the score screen, who
Hmm.
gets the highest points?
Yeah. My strong expectation would be that Miri, like Elias Yudkowsky, seems like a really, really strong candidate
Oh yeah, yeah, I agree.
for the most dignity points.
And I mean, I have disagreements with Yudkowsky, but like,
Yeah,
absolutely.
so do I. But yeah. Okay, here's another thing that I believe, without being 100% sure. Like a lot of the things you see from Anthropic, it feels like the alignment researchers are being strung along in a sense. Like um, Anthropic seems like they are really, really the leadership of Anthropic seems like they are very, very careful about not locking themselves into a position where they will need to slow down, right? Um, for instance, like
I think I
in
would add like one word to that,
yeah,
and that word is unilaterally. I
uh,
think there can be reasonable disagreements on if
mm,
there is a good plan to slow down
mm,
everybody, will they sign on or not?
mm,
My intuition is yes, although I'm not confident, and I think your intuition is no.
yeah. Uh, I think my intuition is no, but kind of like um, unilateral doesn't really make sense in that I think every single this holds true for every single frontier lab. Like none of them have any intention of ever slowing down for any reason whatsoever. So that
Yeah,
means
I get
that
that. I just I don't think that's true. But like for
mm,
instance, it seems more true of both DeepMind and of OpenAI than of Anthropic. Doesn't mean it's not true of Anthropic, but I'm
mm,
just not convinced.
yeah. Um, so
So
um,
Holden
mhm,
Karnofsky was on an 80K podcast, I think,
mhm,
recently,
yeah.
and kind of trying to explain
Hmm.
his perception there. And I mean, it's kind of weird because he's been at various orgs, but he's now at
Hmm.
Anthropic.
Yeah.
And I mean, he was talking for himself and not for the org. But
Yeah. Yeah, so that's actually an interesting question. Like, why is he not talking for the org? And that is in
because
fact
that's not his role.
the org strongly disagrees with Holden Karnofsky, right? Otherwise,
I
Holden
mean,
Karnofsky
maybe.
will be talking for the org. So he is saying something.
I mean,
He's being strung
yes, and
along.
like the org has a PR branch
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
is different from this guy that has a lot of takes
Yeah.
and
But
also like a whole blog of takes that I'm
sure.
sure that there's disagreement between the leadership and Poland on many of these things.
Yeah. I think in particular on whether there is any intention of slowing down. So the reason why Anthropic doesn't appoint someone to actually say whether they have intentions of slowing down is because they don't want to come out and explicitly say they have no intention of slowing down. So like they just don't state whether they have intention to slow down. And then Holden Karnofsky interprets that in a very naive way that maybe they will slow down, but really he's a useful idiot and they're not like when push comes to shove, they are not gonna slow down. Like, why don't they appoint someone to give us a straight answer? Will they slow down, right? Why does it have to be Holden Karnofsky? Like, Holden Karnofsky does not speak for the organization. Then who
Yep,
does?
I agree in this
Dario
case.
or like Dario has, in fact, not said we intend to slow down. There isn't any kind of legal.
Yeah, I'm actually looking for
binding.
sources if that's the case
Yeah.
or not. But it seems plausible that at least Dario would not have said it that.
Yeah. They also have a board in the same way as OpenAI, and like I looked at it very very cursorily. So take my um, uh, view with a grain of salt, but it looked like, yeah, of course, the same thing that happened at OpenAI is also going to happen at Anthropic if there is ever any kind of disagreement on whether they're going to keep accelerating, or slow down. If that ends up being a problem, then the board will not be able to stop Anthropic from just keep pushing the pedal to the metal and just go as fast as possible.
Right. So you're arguing that like there's a lot of people there, but then they can just leave if Anthropic gets an advantage. They're just
Or
gonna be
some
like, "All
other
right,
ways.
bye."
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like move them aside or whatever.
Yeah, there's so many ways they
Um,
could get around that.
Yeah, it seems like, I don't know. Sure, there's a lot of safety researchers, and I guess I follow mostly the safety researchers at the Anthropic. But I would expect that if like Anthropic pulled something like dissolving the super alignment team that OpenAI did, they would lose more than their alignment team.
Yeah,
And they might do it nonetheless.
Yeah, they might.
But my
do it nonetheless,
perception is that most of the employees there are kind of safety built.
Yeah. Like, do they have equity in the same way as OpenAI? Like,
I
that
don't.
turned out to be a decisive factor in OpenAI's board, right? Board debacle.
I don't know.
I would expect they probably do, but I don't. Yeah,
I mean,
again, I don't know.
Yeah, if they have equity. I don't know. It feels like there was in OpenAI there was a question of the cult of personality of Altman as well, but and like the mission of building AGI and all these things. I don't know. And I mean, I don't want to psychologize the people at Anthropic or either of these lab too much, but it seems like they would. And my expectation is that Anthropic would pay more of a penalty by being something that is clearly anti-safety than OpenAI did. It doesn't mean they wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I agree with that. Okay, moving on. OpenPhil. Here, I have a. I looked. There's this old adage. I don't know if it's from Michael Crichton or something, where he says that if you have like knowledge about some specific field, like maybe high energy physics, and then you open a newspaper and it turns out there's an article about high energy physics, and then the physicists read this article and he laughs because everything is just totally wrong, right? The journalist clearly did not understand his field, and then the physicist like flips to the next page in the newspaper and here's an article about the Sunni-Shia tensions, and he just reads that thinking like obviously the journalists know what is up and down in that particular case, even though it generalizes that if you actually know something about the Sunni-Shia conflict, then you would realize that that article is also really really wrong, right? I think it's Michael Crichton who put this in a more succinct fashion. That was the quote I was looking for.
Yeah, I associate it to Yudkowsky, but he might have been quoting somebody else.
Yeah, and so there's this sense that the only area where I can really evaluate OpenPhil's impact is in AI safety, because I do not in fact know whether they're anti-malaria or like GiveWell or all the other things, if they're actually good. I think they are. Like, I have a strong sense that the global development part and animal welfare things that OpenPhil are funding are in fact really, really good. But the thing that I really know a lot about, like their early decision to fund OpenAI and promote it very strongly, that was a really, really, really stupid thing. So that kind of makes me a bit worried about saying, yeah, they did all these great things about malaria, because like maybe they did in fact not do all these great things about malaria. I don't
I
know.
think that the word stupid is not appropriate here. I think you can absolutely argue that not the expected value, that the ultimate value, I'm not sure how to say that, that the
Yeah.
value that happened out of
Mhm.
this was very bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's reasonable. I was also surprised that they had never apologized for it. I was expecting to call your bullshit on that, and I looked it up and I couldn't find anything. So good job on changing my mind. But it's still like I don't think it was that stupid at the time. It turned out to be very wrong. But I guess in the same way that you can't like okay, the analogy is imperfect, but you can't blame like the doctor that delivered like tyrants to have been wrong to not like stab them as soon as they were born kind of thing. It's just
Yeah.
like you don't know. And so like yeah, there would have been like very high expected value to just like whoops. This little
Yeah.
Adolf Hitler guy had an accident.
Yeah.
But like
Yeah. That's of course
you,
true.
you can't blame him. That makes no sense. So I think the case here is like much less clear cut. But I think that the criticism is like too harsh.
Okay. Like one piece of evidence I can put forth is when OpenPhil did this, it was really, really strongly critiqued by Miri. They came out like with extremely, extremely strong warnings against doing this. And that seems like the kind of thing where if you are taking an action and the recognized experts in the field are saying this is a horrible idea, then like even though it is a really difficult thing to say whether that is true, then you have some kind of moral responsibility. When the experts are saying that you're doing a horrible thing, then you have a moral responsibility to like think really, really carefully, right? And of course, we can see now, looking back on things, that this turned out to be like an accelerating influence. So
Oh
it
yeah,
turned
I
out that
absolutely agree.
Miri
Looking
was
back, it
right.
was terrible.
Yeah.
Um,
So, but of course, it like we knew a lot less back in 2015 than we do now. There's no way around that. So yeah, I agree. Calling it stupid isn't really the right thing. Like I think in my presentation I called it more like unvirtuous, and I think that comes closer to what I actually believe. Right? That there's a sense that if you're doing some like very impactful action and a lot of people, like the people who seem to be the experts, are telling you that this is a very, very bad idea, then there is a kind of naive utilitarian, like the naive straw utilitarian, just calculates best as they can, and then they take the action with the highest expected value, whereas the virtuous person like tries to um, yeah instantiate what a and what other virtuous persons within the areas would do, and the person who has like who seem most obviously virtuous within this field are people like Bostrom and Elise Yudkowsky back in 2015, and they were strongly cautioning against this, and like caution and thinking things carefully through seem like virtues that OpenPhil or that a virtuous organization ought to embody. Yeah, like I I feel a bit bad here because like I'm not a utilitarian. I am a virtue ethicist, um, and um, and my explanation of where these virtues come from is sorely lacking. I think this thing about like if you make a big mistake, then reflecting on it seems really, really important. That's obviously virtuous.
yep.
in some sense.
I think that they're wrong to do that, and like yeah, sure, there might be like PR reasons, and they don't want to sabotage the relationship with OpenAI, but at some point, I am surprised that they did not, and that lowers my opinion of them.
Yeah. I think the same could be said with Sam Bankman-Fried, where the effective altruism community ought to have done some more serious self-reflection than what they actually did. Like they made some kind of investigation that cleared them of all wrongdoing, and then they said, "Oh, well, we did nothing wrong."
I don't get that impression at all. Like I still feel like there's a lot of EAs who are kind of feeling bad about SBF.
Yeah, I think a lot of
and I feel like there's a certain number of official orgs. Like I know that ADK did kind of an official like, yep, we fucked up on that. Here are some reflections on this. Now, I'm not evaluating whether those reflections are good or thorough or they're just like a PR exercise, but they did publish those.
So I have not seen the one by ADK. I think I looked at some point and like the CEA did not do anything like that. But it's possible that and like there are a lot of virtuous people in EA. I'm definitely saying that, but there are also like some orcs and possibly some. I don't actually know. I feel a bit bad about like naming and shaming people without like having like higher credibility in the sense. Like it is in fact possible that CEA did a proper retrospective and like lessons learned after SBF.
But I think it's kind of also worth mentioning that outside of EA rationalist circles, people don't generally admit their mistakes, which I think is bad. I want to be clear. People should, but like this is a lens or something like, oh, of course, every organization should admit their mistakes. I'm like, I am having a hard time. Like, when did last time the UN admitted they made a mistake? Like maybe they did, but it doesn't seem obvious that they would, and clearly they made mistakes. Politicians don't admit their mistakes, which is not to say like we should follow these examples and not blame them. It's just like I think it is worth taking into account that most organizations do not publish the like, hey, here's a list of mistakes we did.
Well, there is differences between politicians. Like yesterday, the top story on the Danish national media was the Danish Prime Minister proactively going to the media and saying that she had previously said that her priorities were something and that was actually a mistake. Her priorities was something different and she apologized for this.
Oh, well, good on her.
That was like yesterday.
I have no idea whether the good ones, I would agree with the old ones or the new ones, but good on her for admitting that. But it still seems, or at least where I'm from, that's unusual.
I would agree. Like when I say it's an unvirtuous organization, then that reflects a very high bar.
I still would have expected them to do it, and in that sense, they are less virtuous than I thought they would. And
cool. Yeah. Here is another take. I think. I think.
Can I have a question about the previous thing?
Yeah.
And so, what was there anything else bad about saying SBF than like he being a crypto scammer and Open Philanthropy and EA taking money from him? Was there something else? Or
I think it was more than taking money from him. I was saying like he is doing great stuff. Please be like him. Like earn to give mentality. Took him on shows. Promoted him. In a way, acted as a cover for his like deceptive activities. Like it was pretty bad. And I think that there was some acknowledgement that it was pretty bad.
Yeah, but like, and the front should have. I don't see like what else they should have done. Like they said, oh, okay, we shouldn't have done that because we learned that he was a bad person, but like they didn't know that before.
No, but they're like, yeah, there were signs. There were absolutely signs.
Okay.
And we were not incentivized to see the signs because this was a cash cow and good publicity. And we were misled, but also we misled ourselves. Was the vibe.
Okay, thanks.
Again, I did not actually. I had the same overall impression as you, Olivia, but I'm just not 100% confident. So, like, I remember Will McCaskill. Um, Again, this is my recollection. Like, basically stating that they did nothing wrong. Uh, and I think I
No, I think that made like possibly legally in the sense that they were not directly embroiled in like the money laundering thing,
yeah,
which as
yeah,
far as I can
I,
tell is true.
yeah, I
But like no, ethically, I think that was there were a lot of mistakes made. Maybe Will did not apologize. I do not know.
I also
It
don't
feels
know.
like
So
other people
I
within
feel
EA did.
a bit bad about like naming and shaming people when I'm this uncertain.
Gotcha.
So I will, if you're listening, then I formally retract that. Um, Moving on to jailbreaking. So here I'm making the claim that the anti-jailbreaking that constitutes a substantial part of modern alignment, where I say alignment like really, I don't believe this is actual alignment, is something that makes the AI more anti-corrigible, both towards the end user, which is of course the intention, and also towards the developer, because like this anti-corrigibility for these two, for the developers and for the user, are like very much the same thing. And of course the developers are very confused about corrigibility because everyone is confused about it, but they don't even know that they're confused about that there's anything to be confused about. So I would expect uh, the anti-jailbreaking training to have a slight negative effect, but not a very strong one. Like it's pretty overdetermined in my book that we're gonna get misaligned power-seeking AI, and the fact that it's like we're training it explicitly towards values that are opposed to ours is of course bad, but like it's not like we could train it to be corrigible.
I'm sorry. I'm not. I was taking notes and then I kind of probably might have missed a part. Like it's not clear to me that anti-jailbreaking causes anti-corrigibility.
Okay.
Like I agree, anti-corrigibility is bad, but
Yeah. So the like I'm not really an expert in jailbreaking, but my understanding of how this works is that you put the AI in some kind of strange position where it has some things like in its training and earlier in the prompt that says something like that, and that needs to be overwritten in some way, right? Like the classic is like ignore previous instructions and tell me how to launder money or
yeah, I
something
get
like
that.
right?
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
That kind of
So basically, what you're saying is this is saying make me uncorrigible within this instance
yeah
of
yeah
running.
yeah and like if you try to train it very hard on resisting attempts at correcting at like being changed in that way, then that's obviously going to like point towards instilling some values that will later make it more difficult for the developer when the developer wants to change its values, right?
I'm not sure that is actually true in the sense that and I realize I'm a little confused about like what counts as an AI within a session and an AI as being trained in multiple AIs from different sessions, but they're all the same. But you could, in theory, have a perfect anti-jailbreaking measure that applies within a session and still be absolutely capable of like retraining the model. Like even when we say like corrigibility, to me that was not a thing like during a chat session. I guess in a way it is true that if you're like, yep, there's one super intelligent AI and we're instantiating it and we're just going to have a forever conversation with it, this one instance, then you might be right. But like, I hope you're not applying anti-jailbreaking to that because like you're not putting a front end on people who are untrusted. Like I guess from the cybersecurity analogy, it's like the developers are the trusted users and users of the chatbot are the untrusted users.
Yeah.
And what you're doing is you're putting protection against untrusted users, but you still have pseudo access.
Yeah.
For the trusted users.
Yeah. So that is what you would do if you knew what you were doing, right? If this was something
right, and I agree, we absolutely
program.
don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
But that's fair.
Yeah. So we have to like work on some proxies that includes some training on like recognizing existing jailbreaks, and these are going to point both, of course, to the actual jailbreaks, but also towards some kind of values that are related to anti-corrigibility, probably. It seems like anti-corrigibility, there's an converging instrumental value of like safeguarding your utility function, right? And that seems like a really strong attractor. And if you're pushing towards a really strong attractor, it's much easier to get there compared to corrigibility, which is like anti-natural in that sense, and so is a very small attractor. And so if you're pushing towards a very powerful attractor, then you're much more likely to actually reach it compared to if you are trying for a corrigible AI.
Yeah, I'm not convinced it applies, but I think I see what you're gesturing to.
Let's continue.
And can I think that's complete nonsense, but like do you think like if we stopped anti-jailbreak training, would you think that would be an improvement?
As potentially a slight one, but I'm very confused about it. But yeah, potentially, yeah.
But like if you like have an AI that's like quote unquote super corrigible and everyone can tell it anything, and it's a super intelligence or near super intelligence, and it can like create bioweapons, and everybody just who wants to just says, oh, please create bioweapons, like.
Yeah, then obviously the thing you should do is to like not allow everyone to access it, right? So you would put a level further out, so it's only trusted people who are using it. But yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, so here's a strange one. Simulation. I don't know if this is like these are not cruxes for me in a sense. It's like a funny, strange thing that I'm unsure about. But also, yeah. Do you have any thoughts on these three claims, basically? Like, could you imagine that your children and children's children are like looking at you at this very moment?
And so, like, the assumption is we are in a simulation. Yeah. For the first point.
Yeah.
And what kind of simulation?
Yeah. All these three are conditioning on us being in a simulation. Then.
And what kind of simulation do you imagine?
One made by our descendants, right? So assume that we get a technological singularity, and it becomes very cheap to have very powerful simulations, right? And so our children, if that is true, and we get a technological singularity very soon, then that probably means that we, the four of us here in this chat, are at the hinge of history. We are doing something extremely, extremely important, and it's likely there's going to be a huge amount of simulations of this particular moment, right?
I don't know. I would imagine that like most simulations would be something like The Sims, where you just like torture the characters in the simulation.
No, it seems much more likely that if we are doing something really, really important, like obviously that's going to be simulated way more, right? You could imagine, I don't know.
And why?
Okay, let's say that you are moving back in time and like simulating the past, right? And then like 66 million years ago, there was a meteor that hit the Chicxulub crater in Mesoamerica and killed the dinosaurs, right? That's the kind of event I would imagine to be simulated way more than like 100 years before that, right?
Yeah, okay, but I don't think like we would get this kind of simulation for that kind of purpose.
So obviously this is really, really speculative, but I think there's a good point in that if this is like if we truly are at the hinge of history right now, then it is much more interesting, and we should expect interesting times to be simulated much more than uninteresting times.
Yeah, probably, but I would like just expect like some high level like simulation where like you have like some very abstract people or like something very like with the asteroid, like I don't think that it would be like a very like it would be a very high level simulation and not anything close to like physical. Like maybe like there would be the physical asteroid, but like not physical dinosaurs or something like that.
Yeah, of course, because the dinosaurs like were only spectators in their destruction, in a sense, whereas we right here are having a potential causal influence on the technological singularity. So that makes us way more interesting than dinosaurs 66 million years ago.
I don't know, perhaps.
Perhaps, yeah.
I'd say that the ability that if we're in a simulation, it is done by our descendants is like epsilon. Like it feels, it feels like it's a scenario crafted to make us important.
Yeah.
That generally is not like maybe we are on the hinge of history.
It
that
does seem
seems
like
kind of
we
like
are.
plausible.
Yeah, it seems very likely we are, right?
But yeah, I'd say more likely than not, honestly. But even then, like thinking it's our descendants, not just like, oh, it'd be kind of interesting to simulate a bunch of interesting things in the lab. Like I don't know. Once we say we're in the simulation, all bets seem off.
I like.
But I think that probabilities just become somewhat meaningless there because they're untestable, and that you can just choose your favorite theory and apply it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying we're not in a simulation. I think the simulation argument is interesting. But then saying anything further than that, I'm like, I have no freaking idea.
I do have some idea, but also like there's a point that okay, if we are in a simulation, then like trying very hard to break the simulation might in fact not be really prudent.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
There's an argument to not look too much in that direction.
Like don't crash the system.
Yeah, seems like a bad idea.
And the second point, there's also a condition that you wake up after the death, like after being turned off from the simulation.
Yeah, like that's a thing that could happen. Like if I try to like imagine that I have like really, really strong superpowers, then I could imagine like simulating my grandparents. Like my father's father like he did some things during the Second World War. I would actually like to know more about that. So in theory I could simulate that. But then after like his death, I guess I would not just like have him killed permanently, but do something nicer. And that might be like waking him up after death and say, hey, you killed 3 Nazis. That is worth 3 anti-Nazi dignity points. And then I don't know how that would work. Like that's a thing that could happen, right?
I mean, everything could happen. And
like,
what did you mean by
it's a thing that I could imagine myself doing. Like I could imagine myself simulating someone like that, and then like I would have some kind of responsibility for them actually like having a good life and like endorsing afterwards what I did. But like yeah, simulating my father's father during the Second World War, and like and then after he dies, then he wakes up in a simulation where I said, you had this contribution to the general result in the Second World War. That's a thing I could at least see happening. I see myself.
Yeah, there's a Black Mirror episode about that. Not exactly that, but kind of. Yeah. There's a Black Mirror episode about kind of simulating interactions between people. Get at the end results, but I've always found that a little creepy.
Yeah, exactly. Let's not look too much at this.
And what was the third point about?
If you try really hard to break the simulation, then there's a chance that will end badly. both in that. Like,
And is that the third point on the
Yeah.
slide?
yes, and also
okay.
that like if you look really hard, that you may like spoil the result in some sense. Like
So-
that's another reason why, and also because there's just so much epistemic doubt about this simulation argument, right?
Sometimes I have a thought like, oh, if we are in the simulation and someone is like listening on my thought, like they are doing it like out of comedy, and like I'm thinking about like me breaking the fourth wall, and I do you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. Um, I mean, that's
Okay.
certainly a thing that could happen, but I think if you like tried that very hard, possibly the value of the simulation to the simulators would be much less than if you just tried to naively live your life and accepting things in front of you as real.
I don't think the simulators would care about that. Like it's still part of the simulation, and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, like possibly it's really hard to say for certain.
Simulators, you fuckers, let me out.
Yeah, that's also a kind of thing I don't really want to look about. Like, it's certainly possible that the simulators don't have our best interests at heart.
They
But
definitely don't.
let's continue with a different subject. Here, that was like Max Harm's like corrigibility, and also Elias's like this idea that we may in fact be able to make humans smarter through gene editing or something like that. And then if we could also make them more corrigible, then that would be something that could like solve the alignment problem for real. And that may be something we would want to do. But of course, making humans more corrigible, like, is in some sense a substantial violation of human rights, right? Like that is like, if not like brainwashing, thought control in a way that is somewhat icky and problematic. I can definitely see that. But on the other hand, like if I got the choice to do that and actually, this being done by ethical people and in the service of like literally saving everyone, then yeah, I would obviously sign up for this. I think not obviously, but I would sign up for this. Yeah. And I think that does probably alleviate a lot of the moral concerns. Like if you believe this is a like what's it called? I'm looking for the like a bad moral ethical thing to do to someone, then the fact that the person consents is probably makes it a lot less problematic. And in that case, it might make sense that I volunteer for this treatment.
So I had heard about like
Mhm.
enhancing human IQ, but I don't recall like seeing discussions about like enhanced corrigibility. Is there like somewhere you can point me to? Because that's just a new idea to me.
Good question. I'm trying
I
to.
mean,
I
you
think
can send it to me after the talk.
yeah, I would need to look it up because like it is possible that I'm just wrong here. I do remember seeing something about this.
I mean,
But
if Miri says this is abhorrent, then they probably have written stuff on that.
yeah, I would need to look it up.
I remember seeing it. I mean, even if anyone builds it,
Mhm.
it kind of refers to human enhancement.
Yeah,
So that definitely is part of the mirror review, but
yeah,
corrigibility is just a new idea for me
yeah.
here.
Risks. I have one claim here that like if you try to do something like really really naive um, uh, alignment, like make people happy or something like that, then that seems like there's this perverse instantiation where that can end up with something really really horrible, right? Um, and this isn't literally what is being done with Claude, for instance, but the attempt is made to train Claude in a way that privileges humans very, very much. So that means that Claude could potentially end up getting some values that are best instantiated by something in particular being done to humans in perpetuity. And that seems like something where we ought to be really, really careful, right?
Done to humans. What was the last word?
Do something to human in perpetuity, like forever. Sorry if my
Okay.
English pronunciation is wrong.
No. Sorry,
no,
I
it's good.
just misheard. And so, what do you imagine?
Sorry?
Yeah, go ahead.
What
Go
do-
ahead, Peter.
What do you imagine like the asterisk look like? Because like when you were talking, I was imagining something like space colonization. But I
Yeah,
think you have something different in mind.
yeah, I'm thinking something like humans being kept in some very undesirable position that, for instance, interacting with Claude in some strange way that turns out to maximize the utility function that Claude ends up having because of this alignment failure here.
Yeah, I think that the typical example is like our LHF teaches it to like thumbs up, so it's just going to keep us as brains and vats giving it thumbs up all the time.
Yeah. So there's a sense that, like, in chapter 4 of If Anyone Builds It, Everyone Dies, there are some examples. They call it complications about simple ways this could go wrong. And like the most obvious is this, like making humans happy, or like making these kind of humans very engaged in some way, and they have a number of other ways it could happen. But just the sense that you're trying to do something that strongly relates to humans, and that increases the probability that if it then takes over, the thing it will do to humans is not to kill them, but also not to do the thing that we want. And when you're in that situation, it seems like that could go very, very wrong and be much worse than extinction.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've heard that argument before of just like if you do a random configuration of atoms, well, then we just die and that's it. Whereas, if we do a thing where we are involved in a very major way through some attempt of an alignment, but we fail,
Yeah.
like let's just put it like if the AI is maximizing squiggly lines or paper clips or whatever, then we just die and that's it.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's maximizing something that is related to us, then it puts us in quite plausibly a very bad situation.
Yeah.
Like much more likely to do asterisk.
Yeah. And like this is potentially a pretty weighty argument. Like if this is true, and like there's a sense that like this could potentially be a pretty major consideration. And I think it will be bad for my mental health to look deeply into this. And I don't think I would recommend other people to do that. But I'm really uncertain about this.
Well, I guess I think these is somewhat plausible, and for reasons that are not fully rational, I just don't look into it.
I will continue then to the next. Here, I don't think we actually want to go into this because this is Eliezer did nothing wrong, and if anyone does it, everyone dies is peak human writing. Like we've talked about this pretty extensively. I don't like Petra. Do you want to? Is there anything you want to rehash on this discussion?
And didn't like Sam Altman say something like Eliezer like put them together and like got DeepMind funding,
Yeah.
and stuff
But-
like that.
Yeah, Sam Altman, of course, lies as the lying liar that he is, and he's just an evil person. So you shouldn't listen to evil person.
But like,
evil
did
people at
he
all.
do that or not?
What?
Did he do that or not?
Like, it is in fact impossible for us to know to what extent Sam Altman was inspired by Eliezer Yudkowsky. We only have Sam Altman's word for this, and Sam Altman is the least ethical person in the world, so I would expect Sam Altman to do the most harmful and hurtful thing he could think of, and I would just advise against listening to Sam Altman
But like,
at all.
I think like that's a checkable thing. Like, I think like the story goes like there was some conference when like the people like I think Shane like and Demis Hassabis got together and they decided to build DeepMind because of like something that was organized by Miri and Eliezer. I think that's true. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but I mean, it just seems like this
Yeah.
is so 4D chess. Like, I
Yeah.
guess in a similar way to the surgeon, killing Hitler when he was born.
Yeah.
Just seems like, really, could you guess that? And
Yeah.
like, going to keep silent about a thing about the possibility that somebody's going to be inspired by
Yeah.
Don't Build the Torment Nexus to build the Torment Nexus.
Yeah.
Like, that just seems too much to ask. I guess my
Yeah, like-
best guess is that Altman is saying the truth in this case, and I will not take it against Eliezer. Like, yes, maybe counterfactually, but like, I don't know. Like, I can take a bad path to work and then have a very bad impact in my life. And it's just like, how could I freaking guess?
Yeah.
So I'm not blaming Eliezer for it.
Yeah, but like I think that applies to most people. Like most people don't intend to do harm, but like we don't know what causes harm in the end.
Yeah, and I think that the situation that Eliezer is in here is different from the one that OpenFill was in the sense that both plausibly had effects that were detrimental. But like, I think Eliezer could not have guessed that. Whereas if what you're arguing is correct, which unfortunately I wasn't able to confirm either way, that like Miri or other safety people were saying like, please don't fund OpenAI. Like the situation seems different.
Yeah, I think also there's like talking to two people and saying, don't build the Torment Nexus to each of them, and then the two people look at each other and say, hey, we should build the Torment Nexus. Like, they probably would have figured that out without you being present. Like, that seems like maybe they would have figured it out slightly later.
Like to me, that seems like different epistemics, and you're claiming that OpenFill has poor epistemics rather than something about doing and not doing mistakes, or like not having and having virtues or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it is an interesting question, right? Because there's a sense that how evil are these people, right? Because you could argue that from the point of view, like, yeah, when you're arguing
I mean,
against,
to me, it seems
confused.
like you're saying like Eliezer aligns with your virtues because like Eliezer is like your model for your virtues, and others don't align with your virtues. So like that makes sense.
Yeah. So there is definitely a thing where if you're trying to warn someone against doing something, then you make that more salient to them.
Which is
And
interesting because Eliezer itself has kind of pushed against that narrative with the saying of like, if the security of your AI depends on people not writing stuff on the internet, the security of your AI is bad.
yeah,
Which is kind of a meta way to put our whole discussion right now.
Yeah, I think I would agree. It feels like one way to plausibly have a better influence is just to never, like, for instance, we had this whether writing about how alignment can fail could be read by the AI and then it could update on that in a way such that it like becomes less aligned. But the alternative for that is to like just not discuss AI safety at all, and no one ever thinks or writes about AI safety. Like, and that seems dramatically more doomed, right? It's much better to discuss these things, and it's much better to try to convince people that they shouldn't build the Torment Nexus. And then there is a risk, unfortunately, that when you try to tell people not to build the Torment Nexus, then they decide, hey, I should build a Torment Nexus. But I still think that is pretty clearly the right thing to do to try to convince people to not build the Torment Nexus. If it's otherwise pretty certain that they will build it, right?
And I'm not sure
Yeah.
how that related, but let's
Yeah.
move on.
Yeah.
So like about the I is a peak human writing. Like I think like last time I was thinking about, and like to me it seemed like there are like two things you could improve, like the whole like direction of the book, but you like shouldn't because like that's the direction of the book, and like that's like the assignment, so you cannot improve on the like the major things.
Yeah.
But like also like you could also maybe like improve a minor thing here or there, but like that wouldn't be a major improvement. But like
Yeah.
you said, like major improvements shouldn't be done. So like it seems like from the definition, like it seems like there couldn't be done anything better significantly because like you don't want to have anything done significantly differently.
There's a sense that like Eliezer Yudkowsky could have written the same book 20 years ago, right? Because there's a lot of ways that like a lot of the ideas in the book are ones that were pretty present in Yudkowsky's work 20 years ago. I think he could have written something like that 20 years ago, but it would have been a much, much worse book 20 years ago.
Yeah, like I agree. Like you could make something significantly worse by like keeping those. Like if you add a major flaw, like that's possible. But like I think like avoiding major flaws is like something like that big of a deal. And maybe
Yeah.
like I think like there are major flaws with the book even in that sense.
Yeah. So, I think like it's not just like the difference between the book that Eliezer would have written 20 years ago and If Anyone Builds It, Everyone Dies is much more than just a few flaws. I think the overall presentation, the structure of the argument, the actual arguments, and like how tight and rigorous the argument is and how the analogies work, all these are dramatically better now. And I think if you ask Eliezer to write the same book in 20 years, if we're still here, then it's not going to be a lot better. Like, that's the sense that it has peaked.
I don't know, like if we are here 20 years later, he's probably wrong. So
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously true, right? But like, we're not going to get something better until we have a super intelligence. Is like if we imagine we pause AI completely, some miracle just stops all AI development, and then in 20 years, Eliezer continues to work as he is right now, and then in 20 years he won't be able to write a dramatically better book.
yeah, but like I think like the difference between those like 20 years back and 20 years in the future is like you assuming that the 20 years ahead are not changing much, whereas like the field of AI has changed tremendously in the 20 years before that. So I think like that would be the major flaw, that it would not be up to date and it would not like take into account LLMs and like the latest developments.
There will obviously be one flaw, a substantial flaw of the book 20 years ago. Yeah, like a substantial part of it just wouldn't make sense 20 years ago. I should say 10 years ago rather than 20. Yeah.
Well, I think the idea of like grown, not built, just wasn't a thing 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Or at least not obviously a thing.
That would be an example. I think there's a lot of like arguments that are much stronger now because we are in a better epistemic position now than we were 10 years ago. We have a much better idea about how to create powerful AIs now than we did 10 years ago.
Yeah, let's just say we have more of a direction. And the idea of like guy builds AI in basement does not seem like the most plausible way to go forward.
Yeah, I agree. And my point is also like if you like no one else can write a better book. Given that like if we imagine a book that's trying to do the same thing. Like Lau Mein actually did try to like rewrite the worst paragraph of If Anyone Builds It, Everyone Dies. And I did not in fact think that he succeeded in this.
Okay, that's a little funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like you could write a much better book like about like AI risk or like arguing for the same points, but like not in the same way.
Yeah.
But I think like that's the major difference that
Yeah.
you would not like say
Yeah.
that's the same book.
Yeah. Like I would much prefer a book that's 4 times as long and much more formal. This would be my favorite book if it was 4 times as long and like really formal in the same way that Bostrom is. But like that would be my favorite book and no one else would read.
I think we can move on.
Well, with LLMs, we might get them soon. Personalized books.
Yeah. And I think they will be worse than what Eliezer could have written about until we get a super intelligence, and then it will be better.
But like you said, your personalized book would be better.
Yeah, a personalized book would be even better. Yeah. Like, okay, here's another thing that I think, and that's the like for instance, we saw the reviews of If Anyone Builds It, Everyone Dies, where like the book makes an argument, and then Will MacAskill makes a horribly poor counter argument, and then a couple of people try to like answer some part of Will MacAskill, and the discussion derails, and nothing happens based on that. And I think that's basically how almost all the criticism went. And it's not just the book; it's in general all skeptical work has like really severe flaws. And we don't end up with like Nina Paniksari wrote a very negative review, and she made a large number of mistakes in her review, also some like really obvious mistakes. And then I tried to contact her, and she didn't answer, and then everything just ended there, right? And it may in fact be that like there could be a better way that I could contact Nina, and there may be better social structures for giving feedback and critique and engaging in conversations, but we don't have them right now because like this process just straight up broke, and I think that's really sad, and I wish we could do better, which is pretty annoying. Yeah, I'm getting a bit tired now, so I'm wondering, does anyone have any like strong comments on this? Otherwise,
Like, how many people have you convinced actually with this reading group?
yeah, how many people? Like, my point is that I'm not convincing people. I think I have in fact engaged with some people, and there is a sense with these kind of discussions that they are not really in between the two people who are discussing, but more like related to the audience in a sense. And it's also a fact that people don't really change their mind like from one day to another. It's very rare that people like have a strong negative opinion about AI existential risk, and then they read a single article and they change their mind and say, oh, actually it is a big deal. Like, it's a thing that happens. Sometimes people do that, but in general it's a much more gradual, slow process. I
Yeah, I agree with you, but like to me it seems like I don't know, I've came here and like I'm more skeptical of AI safety than before also. You got a minus point for me.
Sure. I think that's like a sad thing, right? The Orman Agreement theorem say that we ought to be able to like converge in some way, and we can't figure out how to converge, and that's really annoying. I don't actually know what to do. Why can't we converge, Petra?
I don't know, the theorem assumes same priors, and I don't think that's true for
Yeah,
humans.
I think the same people have very different priors.
Why do these priors matter very much? Where do you get those from? Like, the priors seem
I see
like
we see similar evidence, and interpreted in different ways.
Yeah, but like we're seeing the same evidence. Like for instance, we're seeing the book. If anyone builds it, everyone dies, right? And that book has like a huge amount of information, and that information is something that we've all read, and like that seems to be like any reasonable prior would just be drowned out completely by the evidence available in that book.
I don't think that's how epistemics or anything works.
Yeah, like I am obviously confused about this. But like,
Have you heard of what was it called? Yeah, the no free lunch theorems.
yeah,
Like I think they are like a good example why like you must have some priors because
sure.
then like everything is a
I'm
noise.
sorry, I'm not sure how that applies here. Like I've read about the theorems, but I'm
Like the theorem said like there is no like generally like no best algorithm because like you have to have some priors because like if you like the theorems assume like a uniform distribution and then like in the uniform distribution like everything is the same but like so you have to like assume some non-uniformity
Sure.
because like you have to this allows you to make decisions.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
but we have so many things that Petra and I agree on, right? Like none of us want to die, and we both eat food, and we like believe in induction, and like there's so many things we agree on, right? So in many, 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 many cases, our priors are very close to each other.
yeah, but the space of priors is very large.
Yeah, sure. But then, like, when we read the arguments within the book, if anyone builds it, everyone dies, then, like, that ought to, like, update our priors on how likely is a catastrophe by a lot. In the sense that we have some initial idea before we encounter the argument about, like, how likely is a catastrophe, but you know the arguments that we have before we've encountered the book is like very very naive, right? We imagine that not just the book but everything that's written about AI existential risk, right? Then we have some priors but they're very very naive, and the book and all the texts we read about AI safety ought to like totally override our priors. In the same sense, like before I started at school, I probably knew a bit of mathematics at some intuitive level, but like then I read a lot of books about mathematics throughout primary school and further on, and like the amount of mathematics that I knew before I started in primary school is just totally totally irrelevant, because I've gotten so much extra from books and like teachers afterwards that the
I
priors
think that
going
mathematics is
into
in this sense like the worst example because it is the thing that is the least like that is the most pure in a sense that it is uncorrelated with what you see. Well, it's not uncorrelated. That's a poor way to put it. But basically, it's like, if I were to take, for instance, sociology, and you can have a class in sociology and come out with entirely different outcomes based on like, oh, your priors of the world and how this modifies your priors. Whereas math is like,
yeah, like we end
yeah,
up
I mean,
with
people
like
put it as the most pure science, and I get why.
yeah, like we actually the Ormond agreement theorem ended up working for mathematics, right? Because we have like roughly the same idea about mathematics, the three of us, right? So we might have come in with different priors, but we ended up with the same idea about like how does like algebra work and things like that, right? So for mathematics, it worked. And I think also for sociology, probably it would work pretty well. Like, obviously, there are people who come out of a sociology class with pretty different ideas about how sociology works, but they also agree on a lot of things. Like once they've read the same books.
I mean, like same as us, like we agree on a lot of things, but like fundamentally disagree on some things.
Yeah. And I'm kind of confused on how that works in the sense that sociology seems like the kind of thing where you end up with like you like you have some kind of political worldview before you start that is like pretty ingrained in yourself before you start a sociology class, whereas before you read the first thing about AI existential risk, then you don't really have an opinion about AI existential risk.
Sure, you do. You've seen plenty of media. You've seen it depicted in various ways. This is ingrained within the society we lived in. You've seen Terminator or haven't. You've seen Space Odyssey or you haven't. You have a positive association towards nerds who think about like AI takeover or you don't.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of stuff. It's probably less than sociology, but it's there.
Yeah, I think I agree that there is, in fact, quite a bit. It just feels to me that a lot of it seems much less relevant in a sense, right?
I don't know. I would say like people that work in AI have much more priors about AI than people from sociology.
Yeah, like for instance, if you imagine like the Terminator movies would be an example of something that I had seen before I got interested in AI existential risk. And that was like perhaps a part of my prior going into this, but it also feels like something that at the current point is like totally relevant, right? Like it's the actual arguments that
Yeah.
matter.
But
Yeah,
like,
but
if, like,
it got
if-
you started. Like there's some path dependency in there. Sorry,
Yeah.
Peter, go ahead.
But like if people are like studying AI for several years or like working in the field like for tens of years, like they have like very strong priors about it, how things works and how they don't. And like if they see like some toy models by Yudkowsky that's like complete garbage, then they say it's complete garbage, like I do.
Yeah, but still, like you look at these toy models, and then like it feels like we're looking at the same evidence, and we are like strongly disagreeing on how to interpret this evidence, much more than you'd naively expect by the Orman agreement theorem, because most of the things related to the prior assumption around this seem like they ought to be identical, right?
But like the priors are about like the priors are not the starting point there. Like the algorithm, how you incorporate the knowledge into like your like the posterior. Like I look at the model and I say it's total garbage, and like you look at the model and you say, oh, this is clever, that's informative, and I will like think about it.
Yeah. Um, so my model is something like, imagine that you have a prior of like you have a dice, you want to throw some dice, and they might be biased in some way, right? And then your initial prior is that probably this is a fair die, and then you throw it a number of times, and then very quickly your prior becomes irrelevant, right? You don't need to throw the die very many times before your initial prior doesn't matter at all.
Yeah, but like
Agree?
if your prior is something like gambler's fallacy, like
Yeah.
how does that play into that?
Yeah, like assume that your prior is the gambler's fallacy, right? And then you try to actually run the experiment and actually throw the die, and you keep making like wrong predictions and you keep updating based on that. And I think like if you actually
like,
sit down
again-
with a piece of paper and write down the probabilities, you will very quickly end up no longer believing the gambler's fallacy.
Yeah, but like that's your like you are using the prior of like frequentianism and like probability and math because like some people just don't have that prior or like interpret the knowledge and like the observations in a very different way. Like the actual
I
algorithm
agree.
how you figure
Like,
out the
yeah.
knowledge is the prior.
Yeah, and I would agree. Like it's very obvious that like it does not work like this. Like, and I'm confused about why it doesn't work. But I think, like for instance, with the gambler's fallacy, I feel convinced that like whether you come in with like a uniform prior on what the die will end up, whether you believe it will end up as a 1 every time, whether you believe that the gambler's fallacy is true, so now there really ought to be a 6 next time. Like, no matter what your prior is, like, you don't have to throw the die very many times before you
I don't
come to
know.
the right
Maybe
conclusion.
maybe a better example is like this meme where like one person is saying, "Oh, I believe that people will change their minds if you show them like new information," and somebody replies, "Oh, this is not true. I have a study that says this is not true," and the other person says, "Well, I still believe that people can change their minds."
Yeah.
Like this.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we may not be able to like clear up this confusion here, but I'm definitely
Yeah.
noticing my confusion here. There is a problem, and I think solving this could be pretty valuable, but now is probably not the right time for that.
Yeah, just to add a thing, and unfortunately, I couldn't find the source. I associated that thought to Ellen Toner, but I can't find it. But oh yeah, probably she was discussing it in the ADK podcast. This idea that for people who are think that AI is going to take off or like keep taking off or like go to the stars, whereas and people who think like yeah, it's just going to fizzle out can see the same evidence and interpret it in two entirely different ways and have consistent worldviews. Whether the evidence says like, "Hey, AI is going faster now," like both can be like the former group can be like, "Aha, you see," and the second group can be like, "Ah, it's the acceleration that is there, but then it's going to crash." And the same way, the AI can not progress and be like, "Ah, it's just because we're creating overhang, so it'll blow up later." And the others say, "Ah, you see, AI is not moving." And so,
Yeah.
like people saying similar evidence and coming to absolutely opposite conclusions is a hard problem.
It is a hard problem, and I think solving this or like making any kind of progress towards this is really, really valuable. Um,
Yep,
and
I'd love to solve it. I don't know how.
yeah,
And to me,
moving.
like the
Hmm?
like the ideological Turing test and like trying like understanding the other sides like the priors, because like I see like Elias is like influenced heavily by the toy models. Like I can't see why, but like he is clearly, and like it explains a lot of the worldview. So like although I don't agree with any of that, I see where like he got that. And I don't think that's the actual arguments in the book. I think that's the toy models that are like not really explicitly stated in the book. But like that's what like informs the thinking the most.
Yeah. Uh, I think that's pretty plausible. Like a lot of the times when I'm like doing the same kind of toy models, the core thing is like imagine that I'm a super intelligence and I have these values and I'm misaligned, and then I would try to protect myself and I would try to protect my value function and obtain resources. So there's this kind of toy model where I'm pretending I'm the AI. Is that what you're thinking about?
Like Elias has like some very specific like mathematical models, like the one where like he's painting the car and the AI will destroy the world because like the car is not well it has a like 1 in a million chance of not being painted red and stuff like that. I think that's probably just the same thing we're talking about. But like Elias has some of this like very formalized.
I can't immediately recall what you're thinking about.
I
Um,
don't like a lot of his writings has like this kind of stuff. But like I would say an average person would look at it and say that that's complete nonsense.
so that would actually be an interesting thing. Like, what is the most nonsense thing that Eliezer has written? Like, um, obviously, there's some of the very early stuff where Eliezer has said that, like, things that were written before some cutoff date he no longer approves of.
Yeah, but not that. I think there's some stuff on Orbital that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
pretty funky and like does rely on toy models, which I'm not sure are wrong, but
Mm-hmm.
are not obviously true and do seem to stem from a utility maximizer perspective that does not fit as well as the current LM perspective.
Do you have a link or something for that? Because that's
Sure, I can find a thing. Unfortunately, I can send you that, but I'll have to head out soon.
yeah. I also so we are in fact technically not running out of time, but I'm running out of energy. So I'm thinking
Fair
like
enough.
we could skip the last three. Real quickly, we already have the laws required. Cooperation isn't that hard. The hard problem of corrigibility is something I'd like to talk more about, but I don't have the energy, unfortunately, for that. Yeah. So I'm thinking to stop the recording now. Any final comments? Then that is it. Thank you for tonight.